White blood cells, as I already mentioned, are less numerous than red blood cells. They are only in the amount of thousands per cubic millimeter. Up to 10,000 is what we consider a norm. So in terms of volume, that's a very small portion of the overall whole blood. So what do? Their job is immune defense. They are capable of leaving the capillaries, and that process is called diapedesis, and then they can move through the interstitial spaces or spaces between the cells and attack the microorganisms or other foreign bodies and destroy them via phagocytosis.
The white blood cells are an important part of our body's immune system. Neutrophils are a special group of white blood cells that play an extremely important role in protecting the body against infections. Mature neutrophils do not divide. New neutrophils are constantly formed in the bone marrow where they develop and mature. Mature neutrophils are released into the blood where they circulate for 3 to 12 hours and then move to other tissues where they survive only 2 to 3 days. These mature neutrophils can be found in large and small blood vessels, as well as in the tiny capillaries in different tissues. In the bloodstream, neutrophils act as surveillance cells searching for infections. Neutrophils can sense a site of infection because of chemicals that are released by the bacteria. Upon detecting these chemicals, neutrophils slow down and begin to stick to the walls of the blood vessel. They then squeeze between the cells of the blood vessel wall and enter the infected tissue. Here, the neutrophils crawl towards the infection as they continue following the chemical signals. At the site of infection, bacteria are coated with antibodies of the immune system and marked for ingestion. The neutrophil recognizes the marked bacterium, engulfs it into its body, and traps the bacterium in a sac called a phagosome. The neutrophil contains pouches called lysosomes, which are full of digestive enzymes and chemicals that can kill bacteria. The pouches, or lysosomes, then combine with the phagosomes containing the bacteria and release the enzymes and chemicals, resulting in the ultimate death of the bacterium inside the neutrophil. After killing and digesting the bacteria, the neutrophil is spent. Having completed its duty, the neutrophil shrinks in size and breaks up into smaller pieces that can be recognized and eaten by other cells.
Leukocytes can be subdivided into two major classes, granulocytes and agranulocytes. Granulocytes, of course, are named so because of the granulations found in the cytoplasm. There are three types here: neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Agranulocytes do not contain granules in their cytoplasm, and monocytes and lymphocytes are in this group. I will ask you to recognize all 5 different types of white blood cells on the slides. How do you tell them apart? Well, the first thing you want to do is answer a question. Is it granulocyte or agranulocyte? All granulocytes have granulations or little polka dots in a cytoplasm. Sometimes they're easier to see than others. Another important feature here is all granulocytes have a lobulated or segmented nucleus. In other words, the nucleus is not nice and round, but looks like a string of sausage. So let's look at some examples. Here you can see a neutrophil. It's clearly granulocyte. Look at the cytoplasm over here. Do you see little polka dots? Here's an indication that's a granulocyte. Do you see the nucleus consists of multiple segments? Or over here, segmented nucleus or string of sausage sign. So that is definitely granulocyte. There are 3 different granulocytes. Neutrophils have a neutrally colored cytoplasm, not particularly pink, not particularly purple. Neutrophils are the most common type of the white blood cells. About 55 to 70% of the overall white blood cell count. Their major role is phagocytosis. Here on this animation, you can see a phagocytosis. And on this beautiful microgram, you can see neutrophils swallowing little green bacteria. How about other granulocytes? Eosinophils are only 1 to 4% of the white blood cell count, so they're not very numerous. What do? They are also capable of phagocytosis, but they specialize in hunting down parasites. The parasites could be unicellular or multicellular organisms. Eosinophils are also granulocytes, so let's look at this. Do you see granulations? Now they're pink, right? And the string of sausage for a nucleus, so that's a granulocyte. They're called eosinophils because they attract the pink stain. Basophils are also granulocytes. What attracts your attention right away is that they are purple. Not only the nucleus is purple, but the cytoplasm is full of dark purple granulations. That's because the cytoplasm contains a lot of acid. Therefore, it attracts basic stain. Hence the name, basophil. It loves basic stain, very much like the nucleus, which is of course full of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and acids love to react with a base, correct? Basophils are least numerous of all of the white blood cells, and their job is to produce special chemicals like heparin that decreases the clotting and histamine that causes vasodilation during the inflammation process. Now let's talk about the agranulocytes. Remember, there are two, lymphocytes and monocytes. Monocytes are also relatively large cells, and notice cytoplasm is free of granulations. The nucleus usually looks like a horseshoe. It's not really segmented. That's not a string of sausage. Maybe one big polished sausage, huh? Sounds like I'm hungry. Monocytes usually migrate out of the bloodstream and become macrophages. We will discuss later the role of macrophages, but they basically a border patrol. They are the first cells that usually meet the pathogen and send the signal to the immune system to initiate the response. So monocytes are their precursors. They're up to 8% of the total white blood cell count. Okay. Finally, the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are second most numerous white blood cells. They are also agranulocytes. There are no granulations in the cytoplasm. And they also have a gigantic nucleus. The lymphocytes come in two basic flavors, B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. We will discuss their role later when we talk about the immunity, but the important thing to remember is lymphocytes are responsible for specific immune response, which is a response to a particular microorganism. They have such a gigantic nucleus because their DNA is very active. It's being transcribed so that these cells are capable of producing proteins. For example, B lymphocytes make antibodies that help us fight the infections. Let's practice a few examples. The cell identified by an arrow has no granulations in the cytoplasm and a large nucleus. That's a lymphocyte. How about this one? Again, no granulations, horseshoe nucleus. Cytoplasm is ripped a little bit when they were making the slide, but that's okay. I can still see that that's a monocyte. Next, that's a granulocyte. I'm not sure about granulations. It's too pale, but I can definitely see string of sausage, so this is granulocyte. It's not particularly pink or particularly purple, so that's a neutrophil. Finally, this last one, definitely a granulocyte, I see lots of granules in the cytoplasm, and that's purple, that's basophil. Let's do one more. These three cells, again, are granulocytes, and they are neutrophils. How about over here? No granules, large nucleus, round, lymphocyte. Very good. Over here, again, granulations in the cytoplasm, and the cytoplasm is particularly pink. That's the eosinophil. And the last cell, we've seen it already, it's a lymphocyte. Good job. And finally, I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the leukopoiesis. Remember that production of all blood cells starts from hemocytoblast. Hemocytoblast differentiate into myeloid stem cells or lymphoid stem cells. Myeloid stem cells give rise to myeloblasts that give rise to all the granulocytes, or monoblasts that gives rise to monocytes. Lymphoid stem cells give rise to B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. Make sense? Very good.